We had a great session last time. We talked about what it means to be a Sys admin. So if you don't know, or you weren't here, go check that video out too at some point. It's like it is about 2 hours and 20 minutes, but I promise it's fun. It's full of great insight. It's going to be uploaded to YouTube tomorrow, so I'm going to put it up on YouTube. But you can still watch it right here on Twitch. It'll be there for a while. So you can check out day one or meeting one. I hesitate to call these days because days it could be night somewhere else for somebody, or morning, or you know what I mean. So we'll just call them meetings. Yeah, I'm doing well. Good to see you. Good to see people returning. Guess you've been enjoying the learning experience. I have been too, right? I've learned a lot. There's been people that have thrown in some of their philosophies and their ideas on sysadmin and the tech and how to become one and what sysadmins do. And it's awesome, right? To share in the perspective, to learn together is one of my favorite ways to learn. It's to be frank with you all, it's one of my favorite things to do, is to learn with people and with others, in community with others. The videos and stuff you watch on YouTube and all these other IT training sites, they're great. It's fantastic to be able to go through a course and watch a video and stuff. But there's something about getting connected with others that it changes something. It changes the way you learn. It changes the motivation. Maybe you're competitive. Maybe you get a rise out of competing in the classroom. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I honestly don't think competition is always bad. I think that it can be good. Now there's environments that they only focus on competition and comparison, and that can get a little toxic and backstabbing. But when it comes to motivating, I think that it's good to, nudge somebody, especially if they're a sportsman or sportswoman, and they like to compete. That's something that gets you going. You can iron sharpens iron, so you can get better. You can get better with others, by learning by your side. So that's how I love to learn. And so we covered a lot. I'm not gonna cover everything again for this meeting, because I do want to build on top of the last one. But I can say that looks like 9 o'clock is almost upon us, so we can get started. I just wanted to give everybody time to get in. I know people were expecting this to be at 9, so I could be going already, and they'd be like, hey, why is this already happening? You know what I mean? So yeah, so I want to thank you for the follow. So Lemons, I appreciate that. Welcome. Hey, how's it going, Leo? Good to see you in here. Welcome to meeting number 2 of Sys Admin Camp. I had a funny thought. I have some people who I teach at a community college. You're back, so it's like, hey, you just when you thought you could escape. I'm kidding. I don't know. That's the thing, right? Clutch brings up a point, and this is what's going to get us started. So Clutch says in the chat, is school ever really out? Let me tell you, look. Learning never stops. The process never stops. So for those of you that are interested in learning all the time, this is a great place, because I'm teaching, I'm learning, I'm doing all that. And I think if you're here, if you are literally perusing Twitch on your downtime, you have a very active mind, and you may actually be watching or playing games or having so many different streams going at the same time in chat, and that's just how your brain works. So you guys are built different. I just gotta say, people, shout out to everybody watching this video in this stream. You're built different because you're watching this for fun. You're coming to learn for fun, and that's so valuable. Do not get rid of that. Do not sleep on the fact that you enjoy learning, and don't ever let somebody make you feel bad for it. I think that's kind of like, way in the past when people made fun of people that were good at learning or that liked learning. But whatever it is that you feel interested in and you feel like drawn to, I think you should go and learn that. And you don't have to wait on a school. You don't have to wait on anybody. Don't give that power to anyone. So if you feel like, and I know we're getting a little philosophical to start this off, but if you ever feel like someone else is impeding your progress, you got to look internally. Maybe you got to look in the mirror and you got to realize, look, I control my learning. You just say it, right? Say that to yourself. I control my learning. I control my growth. Now, can your employer prevent you from making a certain amount of money? Yes, at that company, but they can't control how much you make outside, right? They can try, but they really can't do much about that. So I'm just saying, keep learning. Like, that's like something that keeps popping back in my head and keeps coming to me is keep learning, keep having fun, especially if you go out and if your goal is to get a job and you go out there and you are competing with other candidates and you're competing with some candidates that are not really a big fan of continuing learning and they don't have fun learning, you're probably going to be able to beat them in getting that role, or you're going to be able to outlast them in that role because you're enjoying it, right? So I do think you should do something you enjoy. So I'm Bob. For those of you that haven't met me, I'm a teacher online to the world, and I also teach in my local community. I teach IT stuff. What does that mean? System administration, network administration, Cisco, Windows administration stuff, a little bit of Linux, Linux basics, ethical hacking. I'm starting to get into that more and more, there's so many things I just love to teach as it relates to the IT field, because I just think it's a great field to get into and a great field to be in right now. So I teach in that realm. I love to teach for fun. I'm not solely profit focused. I would like to do this more often and, have time to do that and maybe even turn it into something. So just, do what you feel is on your heart. You can be here. Don't feel guilty. Don't ever feel like you have to give for anything. Okay. Just come to the stream. This is a free thing. I'm not charging. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm not sponsored. This is not a sponsored series. I'm not closed-minded to sponsors, but I also really am just big on the technology and teaching the technology. So the second, the first day, which was yesterday, the first meeting of Sys Admin Camp, we defined what a Sys Admin is, right? And I'm going to show you a couple things we talked about. So we got into Sys Admin. We got into what is a Sys Admin, what do they do, what is it, and my definition when you're talking about system administration, historically you would think of a server person or someone who's administering servers, but for me, I think the network is also a system, and the cloud environments is also a system. So I'm going to give you an idea before we really dive into today, which is the continuation of building on our Active Directory install for our scenario. Is we are moving towards building a environment, and I'll show you this. I'm going to skip through a couple slides here. So we're in a scenario right now, a fictional scenario, where we are hired by Twitch Institute of Technology to build an infrastructure for the school, the Twitch Institute of Technology school, and what we want to do eventually is turn this into a model or lab environment that will eventually be something that mimics the real world, right? So like something you might see as you go out into the industry. So Keyboard, thank you for the sub. Thank you. I got to shout out people that sub. So thank you, Keyboard. You're a real one. You know, you all are real ones, but I really appreciate it. Anything helps, you know, that helps motivate me more to do better and continue to look at ways to make this a much better thing. But here's Twitch Institute of Technology. We got our network in place. You know, we called our contractors to lay the cable, you know, and then we've rack mounted our switches, and I haven't shown any of that. At some point, we're going to go over switches. I do want to cover like some in-depth network stuff, but for now we're going to focus on starting with Active Directory because I think that's very accessible. So, you know, anytime I go through and coming up with lessons, I try to think of what's an accessible technology. Like, what is a technology that people out there can get their hands on for free, maybe? You know what I mean? And I think Windows Server, and I'm going to show you some things as this series, as these lessons go on, that you're gonna figure out how you can actually, for a year, have Azure access for free, and you could have up to 750 hours of VMs usage for free for a year. So that stuff, like, you know, that'd be cool because you can do everything I'm doing on my hypervisor here in the environment, which brings me to my next point. You could do all that in the cloud as well. So we've gotten as far as setting up a VM from scratch using VMware ESXi. I'm going to log in. And so we got this far. We created a VM from scratch. Why? Because in the real world, virtualization has pretty much swallowed up server infrastructure, meaning your servers are probably VMs running on a hypervisor, whether it's Hyper-V or VMware ESXi. In this case, we're using VMware ESXi. I'm using 6.7. I need to update my server to 7.0. Maybe in one of the lessons we will do that. But today I definitely want to get through our talk on Active Directory. I want to talk about identity, and I want to talk about authentication. I want to define those things. I don't have as many slides for you as I did last time. Normally, as we go, I will use less slides, and I will use more systems and more like real living examples. The slides give me momentum, and occasionally we do, if we're getting into a like hairy topic that we need to really sit down and talk about it theoretically, I'll throw some colorful slides up there. But if you've been in any of my learning communities, whether it was a class in college or whether it was in a Twitch stream or something, you know that I'm very focused on let's just get to doing it. We can talk about it as we do it and just share resources and links. So yeah, let me know if you have ideas too throughout this process. If you want to add things, like yesterday we started talking about Docker and Kubernetes, and we got into a conversation about Ansible. So once our environment is fully built, we're going to connect it to like the cloud, most likely to Azure. And then we're going to get into cloud stuff and maybe even DevOps. We haven't gotten that far though. So I think if we get to the point where we're doing DevOps, we're talking about kind of a whole different series. But this is going to kind of be a framework and a foundation for a lot of other stuff we could do. So let's do this. So here's VMware ESXi. The VM is powered in the off state, right? So right now I need to turn it on, just like any other computer. Now normally this would still be running, okay? It would still be in a real world environment. In our Twitch Institute of Technology, this VM should be up, right? Because it's the domain controller. But because it's in my home lab here, and I promise today I'm going to show you what my home lab looks like. It's not all that impressive looking, but has a great functionality. So we're gonna get going. So let's do this. Let's power it up. So normally this would already be running in a production environment. You really shouldn't shut your DC off. That's one of those things you wanna have maximum uptime on, just because it's so important, right? So as we install, because there's a little bit of a waiting process when you install Active Directory, I'll explain some of the things that are happening during the install process. But Active Directory, and you let me know in the chat if you know, or in the comments below, if you know anything about it. Share in the comments. Say, hey, Active Directory is this. Define it. Come up with your own definition. And I know Microsoft, they develop it, and the backbone of Active Directory is Kerberos, invented at MIT. So there's lots of documentation out there. But I would say try to define it. If you know what it is and you've worked with it, just use your own words, right? That helps, right? Let me see if I can get logged in. Is it giving me an issue? Hold on 1 second. There we go. I was like, why is that doing that? Okay, here's another thing we did. We installed VMware tools, right? So that's like, the software, the drivers that, tell Windows, essentially, Windows Server, that it's in a VM. And if you want to see that whole process, you can watch that video. I am going to try to, when I post those on YouTube, I'm going to post that whole video. I'm going to edit out the beginning where there was like some chit chat. But, for the most part, I'm going to put everything in there. So, I'll try to do my best to kind of bookmark certain portions. So if you just want to see one thing, you can go to that. I don't want to cannibalize your time. But some people, they like that long form. The 10-minute chunks thing's kind of hard to do. It really is. And then you turn up having like 10, or 100 videos when you could have just done that all in one shot. One thing I like about companies or organizations like Free Code Camp, and you should check them out, is they put their whole course in one video. So you can just find your way through that. Because, technically on YouTube, your profile settings, if you're logged in to YouTube, and I recommend you log into YouTube with a Google account or with an account, it saves where you were last, right? And the browser caches that too. So you can just come back to where you left off, right? So if it's like you're exhausted, this is too long, then, pause it, go to whatever else you got to do. And then if you want to come back and keep learning, just come back to the video, right? So let me know if you have ideas about that. But here we go. So for Twit's Institute of Technology, we are going to be building a domain controller. Now, what is a domain controller? A domain controller is a server on a network environment or in a Windows environment on a server that hosts Active Directory. Active Directory is not just LDAP. So contrary to some beliefs, Active Directory uses LDAP, but it is much more. It is a whole specialized database developed by Microsoft using a very sophisticated key exchange system or ticket granting system